Okay, then we are going to start this meeting. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. We are having our City of Pontiac Planning Commission meeting for March 15th of 2023. And I would like to introduce the people who are here in the room. I'm going to start at my far left, our planning manager, Mark Andrick. To my next left is Michael McGinnis, Mr. Tim Shepard, Christopher Northcross, Sam Henley. I am Mona Parlov. Are we going to have Dan here tonight?
We are not going to have Dan here
Okay,
tonight.
right.
Okay.
And we have some new people in the audience I need to acknowledge, but I don't know your names.
Yes, ma'am. Hi, everybody. My name is Justin Curry, one of the new planners here within the City of Pontiac.
Justin Curry is a new planner in our department, much needed. Thank you, welcome. And?
My name is Corey Christensen. I'm the new senior planner.
Oh, very good. Hi, Corey Christensen, welcome. So we are ready to start our meeting. Roll call.
Henley,
Present.
Northcross,
Present.
Parlov,
Present.
Shepard,
Present.
McGinnis.
Present.
And I want to share for the commission in official capacity that Commissioner Duvall has expressed that she was unable to make it tonight. So,
Okay.
okay,
Thank you for,
for her. And if you could excuse her, that would be great.
I would like to excuse Ms. Duvall from our meeting. Okay. Next, official communications.
I do have one matter. Joni Johnson, she was referred to both, unfortunately has resigned from Planning Commission. I don't know, this might have been mentioned 2 weeks ago, but I just wanted to reiterate. She is moving out of the state much quicker than she anticipated. You know, it was a long-term plan, and so we're definitely going to miss her contribution. So right now, the mayor is considering other Planning Commission appointees, and I would still say if you want to apply, please do. So on the city's website.
Very good. Thank you for
Okay.
that. Next, we have amendments for our agenda. Anything that we need to add or amend?
There is nothing to amend. I just want to state, if anyone is here, the public hearing notice was sent out for SEP 23003 for a special exception use for a community service facility at 146 Cesar E. Chavez. The applicant voluntarily asked to withdraw that late last week. Because a public hearing notice is there, we put that on the agenda, but that will not be heard tonight.
Okay, so we will remove that from
Okay.
the agenda. All right, so then I would like a motion to accept the agenda with the one amendment.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay,
I have a question about it.
yes, please.
Are we required to hold a public hearing if we've posted that it happens?
You are not, so. And you're not required to take action because the applicant has in writing stated their withdrawal of the application.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. Do you need to do a roll call?
Okay. Shepard,
Yes to approve.
Northcross,
Yes to approve.
McGinnis,
Yes to approve.
Henley,
Yes to approve.
Parlov.
Yes to approve.
5-0.
Okay, next we have our meeting minutes from February 1st. Lots was said that night, lots of minutes. Does anyone have any modifications? Mr. McGinnis, anything?
None at this time.
Okay. Mr. Shepard?
No changes.
Mr. Northcross?
No changes. Good job.
Thank you. And how about for you, Mr. Henley?
No changes.
Okay, very good. And I don't have anything to modify as well. So I need a motion to accept the minutes as is.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the February 1st, 2003 meeting.
Great. And a support?
Support.
Yeah, lots of support. Roll call, please.
All right. McGinnis,
Yes to approve.
Northcross,
Yes to approve.
Henley,
Yes to approve.
Parlov,
Yes to approve.
Shepard.
Yes to approve.
Okay. 5-0.
Okay, very good. Now we have any special presentations?
We do not have any special presentations this evening.
Okay, very good. We're going to move into our first public hearing. I would like to welcome the applicant ZMA 23-002. It is a zoning map amendment of C1 to C3 for the address of 484 Auburn Road. And did you want to present the information first?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I do want to apologize to the commission. I do not have a motion for you in your packets right now, so hopefully we can work through that on the recommendation slide. So
Sounds good.
Tonight, and I just want to announce for the public hearing process is on page 2 of the agenda, if you're wondering how this, what public hearing would be,
You want me
take
to run through
place.
it quickly? Did you want me to run through it quickly?
No.
Okay,
So,
great. Go ahead.
you do not. Do you guys mind doing a print, maybe about 10 copies, and just bring it up? And I'm going to start the presentation. Thank you. So tonight we have a zoning map amendment, which is also known as a rezoning for application ZMA 23003, or 002, excuse me, for 484 Auburn. The applicant is Adi Palig, if I'm saying that correctly.
Not spelled correctly, but it sounds right.
Okay. The proposal is a rezoning from C1 to C3. This request is to allow flexibility for future land uses on the property for the property owner. A site plan is not part of the rezoning process. I will share as we go through this, we have talked about multiple distinct uses here, so that may be brought into discussion, but you are really approving a rezoning, not necessarily the use, because that would be a separate process than a zoning map amendment. So tonight is the public hearing with a recommendation this evening. This will be going to City Council for approval with multiple readings, and then potentially a site plan approval depending on any modifications that are done to the site. So this is some background information, just showing 2 photos of the site. So in the upper, the left picture here, this is South Francis, and the street that's cut off just slightly, this is Auburn Road. So this is the subject property with the red area here. This is, I believe the last use of this was a kind of a community nonprofit in the area, and then obviously that's a paved parking lot for the rest of the facility. And then this shows the Google Street View from a couple years ago. The applicant also owns the other side of Francis Avenue, as you can see right here. It's off the screen. This property, and this is more of a subnote, was zoned as C3 several years ago by City Council. But I do want to note just the distinction of the buildings. This is a much larger building in terms of square footage than the smaller footprint of both the building and parcel that you were reviewing at 484 Auburn this evening. So. This is a zoning district map. I'm realizing it's a little hard to see, but there's a cyan outline here. So the subject property is right here, and that is C1 zoning, which is really just a basic commercial zoning district. There are residential single-family zonings from North Unity Park down here, Unity Park down here, and then North Unity Park up here. Along Auburn, there's a mix of C1 and C3 zoning districts. Now, C3 is commercial corridor, does allow some more intense uses. I will get into that later in my presentation. But I do want to correct this map that we believe that this property is zoned C3. So if there's any questions about the reference, but we do have a mix of C3 and C1. C3 is designed for more commercial corridors. You see that on Woodward. You see that on Cesar Chavez. So if there's any questions about this map, please let me know. There are 10 standards of approval for a zoning map amendment. I'm not going to go through each of these, but it is a comprehensive review to understand that this rezoning makes sense and is suitable within the land use framework that we have at the city. You know, it is appropriate. And so I'm going to be referring to the master plan as we go forward within this discussion. There is some analysis with this provided by our planning consultant in the packet. And if there's anything you want to highlight, I definitely refer to Planning Commission to review that this evening. Now, some high-level findings is the Pontiac Master Plan from 2014 designates the Auburn corridor in proximity to the subject site as mixed use. The mixed-use category recognizes the historical patterns of industrial uses located adjacent to residential uses on this corridor, which was potentially harmful to the viability of neighborhoods. At the same time, the master plan recognizes the need to encourage the redevelopment of older buildings along corridors such as Auburn. With this, Auburn is designed, the master plan does go on for some pedestrian scale development, which would suit more a C0 or C1 than it does a C3, but it doesn't eliminate, uses in a C3 from being a pedestrian scale. The current C1 zoning district does permit a variety of uses that would be compatible with the goals of the master plan. As I said, the proposed rezoning is consistent with the master plan and will allow for a redevelopment of a site that is currently vacant. Given the setting in close proximity to the neighboring residential uses, a rezoning to C3 could introduce more intense uses that are incompatible with the neighborhood environment. While Auburn Road is established as a thoroughfare in the city of Pontiac, that sentence is not finished, it is more designed for pedestrian scale. Now, given that there are other C3 properties located in Auburn, the requested rezoning does not represent an isolated case. And I'm highlighting not because there is an error in the staff report, just to highlight that this is not an isolated case because there are surrounding C3 properties. However, it does represent a circumstance where potential incompatible uses can be established and is contrary to the future land uses desired for this corridor. So in getting to the differences between the proposed zoning district C3 and what is not allowed in the C1 district, this is a summarization. There's a couple other ones, but these are the majority ones. The following are either allowed or special exception use. If there is a star, it is a special exception use, which would require a planning commission approval. So unlimited outdoor retail sales, automobile service for an industrial site. So this is different than commercial. So if you're getting your car at a Jiffy Lube, that usually does not qualify as industrial. Light manufacturing, mini warehouse, and non-toxic whole storage and distribution. So really that is some of the uses that I think staff is really considering, if that were to be here, what does that do to the surrounding neighborhoods? What does that do to the corridor as it relates to our master plan, as it relates to the future vision of the city? So, all right. So based on the analysis of the applicant's request, staff's recommendation is denial for the rezoning of case ZMA 23-002. I apologize for the typo, from C1 to C3. So the applicant is present this evening and has a slide presentation that he would like to show you. But with that, that is my presentation, and I'll be happy to take any questions you may have.
Very good. Thank you for the presentation. I actually have questions for the applicant that I think if they gave us their presentation first and then we discussed, I'd like to do a little bit out of.
Really, it's an opportunity first to let the applicant present his case to you guys as to why they're looking for a rezoning for that property. I think that would be appropriate, and then questions afterwards.
Very good.
So, okay.
Great.
And I'm going to head up there to help him switch presentations, so give me just a second.
Great.
And Audie, come on back up there.
And if you'd like to approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
And I'll move this slide along, so just tell me when.
Okay,
this slide.
fantastic. Good evening, everyone. My name is Audie Pellig. Current address is 484 Auburn. That's what we're talking about? Okay. And what we're proposing is, of course, to give it a little more flexibility with the zoning. We'd really like more of either a mini warehouse or some type of distribution. We could always put a stipulation in there that there won't be any heavy noise or machinery. This art wall install would be almost what you have for designer furniture services, which is just, I think, a few buildings west of us, okay, which is also on Auburn. And we would do crating, storage, and receiving of furniture and sending out of furniture. And for that, we need that warehouse purpose or a mini storage area. That's why we're looking for C3. Now, if for some reason that wouldn't work out, we'd still like to go for C3, so we have more flexibility with future tenants. That's all. So this would be the business this is something that we're doing right now. This is located in Keego Harbor, but we could use more space. Some of the artwork presentations, we currently have an art gallery in Keego Harbor, which is at 3295 Orchard Lake Road. Anyone here tonight is welcome to come and visit the gallery just to see what we've done with the building, the interior, and so on. It's a business that's been in the family since 1979, and we take a lot of pride in this business, and it's a business that we take a lot of pride and passion in. Proceed. So again, it's just a lot of bringing items into the warehouse, taking them out. And again, we might do picture framing, which would be on a double miter saw. But again, it might be just woodwork, nothing very loud, with a few air compressors and so on. It's more assembly of maybe crates, sending artwork or sculptures in and out of the state. And really, that's about it. Let's go forward. Just like that. So again, for the warehouse needed and the space, and it's just creating boxes, stacking one on top of the other, moving perhaps in-state or out-of-state. Just a very rough of what it would look like. I had one of the girls from the gallery. She's not great at PowerPoint or Photoshop, but I had her put some landscaping in. We would even do greater improvements than that. And I think that's all of it. Yeah. If anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
And Audie, do you have anything more for Planning Commission about why you're beyond just our wall that you've shared with me that you'd like to share with Planning Commission of why you're looking for this rezoning?
There was another person that was looking to come in there before we came up with this idea. It's something with an automotive showroom that it's a business to business where everything would be inside. Fence would be, it'd be like a privacy fence so you wouldn't see anything on the inside. It would almost be like a JBL that you have on, it's on Huron. It's right across from the Riker, or next to the, what used to be the Oakland Press, something like that. But again, we're just looking for flexibility, that's all. We've been working in the city of Pontiac since about 2016.
Okay, great. Why don't we do this? Why don't I start from my left, and if you have questions for a petitioner, why don't you ask, and then we'll go from there. Mr. McGinnis.
I don't want to go too overboard and take other people's questions, but I do have some. Thank you very much for submitting your application and for your investment so far in the city of Pontiac and your interest to take that further. How long have you owned this property in question, or do you own it yet?
We do own it. It's been about, I'd say maybe 2.5 years.
Okay. And it has been vacant during that time, and of course that was mid-pandemic, et cetera.
Yes.
But when you acquired it, it was a vacant structure as well, or was
Yes.
there already operations?
No, it's vacant. We'd have
Okay.
to do a property maintenance inspection or a team inspection.
Okay. And is it correct to deduce that this previously was the location for Friends Assisting in Recovery?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know the year the building was constructed? Approximately.
Circa 50s, perhaps.
Okay. There were a lot of small grocery and meat and fish and
Could have been,
produce
yeah.
along that thoroughfare. I can't speak definitively to that site, although I can look at some of our historical records, and we might be able to see what that address, but it seems very likely that to serve the residential population, of which it was much denser in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s on the east side of Pontiac, many of those buildings that are still standing once had a mercantile focus that was more about goods directly to consumers.
Pre-internet.
Yes, pre-internet. And the current configuration of the building, would you say it's, and I apologize, I have not been inside it before, or I don't apologize, I just haven't been inside it before. Can you give us a sense of what the structure is currently configured as interior?
Yes, it's an open shell.
Okay.
That's all. It has a 5,000 square foot main floor and a 2,000 basement.
Are there substantial structural or layout, with an asterisk, since you've already explained that there's not much of a layout, challenges that prevent it from being viable or successful at the current C1 designation?
Again, not really, but the only purpose we'd like is for that mini warehouse or that sort of the distribution, that's all.
So the structure is 25,000 square feet approximately?
5,000.
5,000,
Yeah.
that makes more sense.
Mhm.
Is the, what's the size of the parking lot?
So the size of the parking lot, it's not correct what was shown on the screen. It's a little bit further back, which goes into the parking, because it just shows the existing parking lot, but there's a lot of green, like grass area that goes, if you'd see it in person, it goes probably about another 100 feet further down in Francis to the south.
Okay, continues south.
Yes.
South.
Mhm.
Do you own the vacant parcel immediately to the west of the property?
We do not.
Okay. And so if we are going eastbound, I believe staff shared that you currently have the structure that's at the
500
southeast corner?
Auburn, yes.
And is that currently in use? I apologize, I'm not familiar.
We're in the process of rehabbing the place. Just a few months ago, we did an extensive demolition inside. You got a few mezzanine structures that had to be taken down, and that's what we're working on. We replaced the entire roof on the west side. I could go over there and point to it, or unless you have a laser point, I'll go point over here. So we replaced this entire roof over here, this entire roof over here, this entire roof over here, and we did all these. The demo was all over here. It's about 15 dumpsters, and then also you got a mezzanine structure in here that we took down.
Okay.
And
To recap those that didn't hear that from the microphone, the applicant showed in the aerial view the portions of the adjacent or building across the street on South Francis where they've been replaced. They've replaced 15 dumpsters worth of debris, the roof and mezzanine areas as well. How long have you owned that building, just out of interest?
we've owned that building probably about 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing about the location on Orchard Lake Road for the gallery. I did a quick Google, so I'm familiar with the orientation for that. Is the vision that these structures, the operations for this Auburn Avenue would be complementary and in tandem with the art gallery on Orchard Lake Road at the
Yes,
West
absolutely.
Bloomfield Kego Harbor vicinity? And how might practically that work?
It would be an auxiliary space where we use to do business in tandem with what we have at the gallery, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Another note I just want to say, it's not really related to this meeting, but from all the lumber that we pulled out of that mezzanine, they were all 2x6s that were 10 or 12 feet tall. We were able to do an addition on a building in Kego that we have our current framing and storage. We had enough lumber to recycle all that to build a 1,000 square foot storage as well.
The location and prominence of this commercial site is an interesting one. The Auburn corridor deserves a great deal of attention and investment by the city. And as somebody who, in addition to my planning commission role, I represent Pontiac's east side on the city council, I'm very eager long-term to see Auburn Avenue be a thriving corridor. It has been in the past, and we know that it can again, but it will require from us creativity and vision. So obviously, we don't want to lock ourselves into something that would be incongruent with that future vision, with moving forward. What you've laid out, at least initially, doesn't give me strong concern or pose a situation that makes me feel it's a real wrong fit. But obviously, there is a neighborhood immediately adjacent to it, and it's an important commercial corridor that we want to grow rather than just further see it shrink, further demolished. Across the street is a long-standing staple in the community, the Frosty Treat,
Yes.
which is a locally owned business that's now has new local owners, a lot of foot traffic, a lot of eyeballs. So it matters to us that regardless of the zoning and regardless of the use, that the property is beautiful, that it is pleasing to those passing by, that those live nearby, and those that are supporting the existing businesses and the businesses to come. So regardless of that, I'm really grateful to learn that that's your vision as well, for the exterior to be aesthetically pleasing, for the landscaping to work for the site, and just know that at every step of the process, that'll be something that many of us on the Planning Commission are eager to see. Since we live here, we pass by here, we know that these unique older buildings are a challenge, but they're also an opportunity.
Oh, they're beautiful.
And we're really grateful that you saw that opportunity as well, the possibility of adapting and reusing a structure that's got some years on it. So in your application, you said, in terms of statewide, in your opinion, this approval is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of substantial property rights. This approval will allow for the building to be leased along with beautifying the property through improvements renovations, landscaping, and so forth. So it's your contention that the current C1 zoning limits or prevents the full adaptive reuse or the leasing to prospective tenants. Is that your position?
I believe so.
And do you have anything further you'd like to elaborate on that's led you to that opinion? Have you
I mean, the
interacted
building-
with prospective tenants with the C1 designation and it's been a dead end? Or it's your first pursuit is to try and have it as art wall?
Yeah, the
And
first
that'll
pursuit
be
is,
direct utilization?
yes, yes.
Okay.
So that would be the plan. But in the future, if we need a larger space and perhaps we move over to 500, if the business grows, we'd like to have a little bit of flexibility that if it's a C3, I think it would lease much quicker than a C1.
And what is the current zoning designation? There was a little bit of ambiguity there for 500 Auburn Avenue.
C3.
C3.
And I went before planning and I took it from C1 to C3.
Okay.
And that is confirmed. We're still working on the zoning map and doing research, but that is confirmed C3.
Any of my veteran colleagues, do you have any recollection of that? Of when the neighboring business went from C1 to C3? It's been a few years, probably 3 years maybe?
Easily 3-4 years maybe.
My recollection is that came before us, and boy, I'm hoping I'm not confusing things. This is maybe 6 years ago, 5 years ago, and it was going to be some type of food processing
Yes, yes. So that was supposed to be.
operation, and for that reason, we thought it would benefit the whole community in terms of it being now a hub for food distribution, and that was what swayed us to go to the C3, that it was going to have some direct benefit to the community.
Yes,
That's helpful. So the adjacent 500 Auburn Avenue, regardless of ownership, although it is still your ownership as well, the neighboring property is now C3. I see that throughout Auburn Avenue right now, as you mentioned, some of the furniture operations, there's other uses that are thriving on Auburn Avenue currently and other future uses that I could see where C3 fits. There are concerns that C3 might open up other less compatible or cohesive to the neighborhood, to the thoroughfare. And so that's the difficult part, is seeing how we get through that. But this is a full rezoning request, not a conditional rezoning,
At
correct?
this time, we've had some conversations about conditions, but the applicant has requested a straight rezoning. So really, your analysis is that any use could potentially go in here under the zoning district, and if it's a permitted use, it's possible, they may not even have to come to planning commission, so.
Does staff have any further context you'd like us to know in terms of the history or records that the city shows for 484 Auburn Avenue?
I don't have anything with the history, but I know that the surrounding C3 properties, I believe, have been zoned C3 for a while. And I would share the concerns, particularly, I know Unity Park has been rehabbed by a few developers over the last 5-10 years for those homes. And there's a similar, I think, momentum for North Unity Park, nothing formal, but there's a momentum up there. And I think the city's interested in evaluating potential zoning opportunities for that neighborhood, and also looking at Auburn and looking at an overlay district. Is something formally before us right now? No. And so, C3 doesn't necessarily lend to a mixed-use development where you may have commercial downstairs and residential upstairs. So that's concept at the moment, but I think that's kind of staff's concerns, that we respect the C3 that's there. We're just not wanting to turn this portion of Auburn into a corridor. Now, when it gets down to MLK and between there and Opdyke, that's where there's heavier industrial, and it makes a little bit more sense as you get farther away from the core of the city. So,
Thank you for that context. For the community's benefit and the applicant's benefit, Auburn Avenue, an important thoroughfare as we've already identified, the city has received funding for study to improve safety enhancements and improve crosswalks, and that's in advance of an investment into the reconstruction and repaving of Auburn Avenue as well. So we're making a really concerted effort from Woodward all the way to Opdyke to make sure that Auburn Avenue receives infrastructure reinvestments that are necessary too. So it's part of the reason why we're taking as broad of a look as possible about a new future and a new chapter for Auburn Avenue be able to thrive. That's the extent of my questions at this time, but I do have a point of personal privilege. I'm going to go grab a bottle of water. Does any other commissioner need something to drink?
Oh, thank you.
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Tim?
So I'm a little biased because I know these guys. So they have a building next to mine. I've watched the father and son team develop stuff that most people couldn't develop. So they have an old fire station. I think that you still have
Yes.
that, right? So I would say 20 years ago.
Yeah, 2001 or 2.
So I may even have been on the planning commission in Kego at the
Yes.
time. I don't know if that's right. So projects that nobody else was doing. The building they have next to me, which is their art gallery on Orchard Lake Road, it's next to where my office is. I've looked at that building for years. Nobody could figure out how to do it. It was a disaster. It was a mess. And these guys pulled it off. So as we sit here in these groups, usually it's like, well, what if they are telling us one thing and they're really not going to follow through on it? I've watched it. So this is not, hey, let's stick our toe into Pontiac. I don't know how many properties you have in Pontiac, but I know we've talked enough. And I've been in 500 with you. I don't remember if we walked through this one. I don't think we did. I think we just
Probably
looked
not,
at it from the outside and talked about it. So, but what I've seen is they do amazing stuff, and they're not going to let this thing look crummy. And I think he did say one thing that's important is that we don't want big, heavy machinery, and if he puts that in the contract,
I'd be glad to do that.
if that's possible, I don't know. But everything I've ever seen, they've never flipped any. I don't see them flipping things, so it's not like, let's get it done and put the wrong use in. That isn't something we can, that's just a verbal comment, not anything more than that. But I think it would be great. This is the kind of people that we want in town, because they're investing in things that other people aren't investing in. And his image that he's got right there, first of all, it's already been painted. It was gray when I went by there today. It's gonna look a lot better than what you showed on your earlier
Yeah.
thing. And that's, I think a lot of people, we tell them, bring us great, visuals and materials and all this stuff, but their art gallery is not a basic art gallery. This is a high-end art gallery. The cars that we see pulled in there are serious. I mean, this is a different level, and I know they're not gonna let this thing be anything but great. I'm assuming you own the parking lot behind, which is good to know. Are you gonna repave?
We'd like to repave, yes.
Yeah, so I think that was the only thing that I saw about the building that probably could use some help.
Lighting, repaving, landscaping, all of it. Windows too.
Planning Commission, can I ask a question of the applicant? Because the art gallery is not something I've actually discussed with the applicant, but Audie, how would you classify this use for this business?
Regarding specifically,
The business, the art gallery, what do you consider that light manufacturing? Do you consider that an art gallery? What?
if you consider framing or crating, and then storage and warehousing and receiving, that's really all it is,
Okay.
nothing more.
Is the majority
machinery.
use, is that framing? Is that correct?
We do picture framing, yes.
Is that the majority use, or is it a combo of things?
It's probably a third. I mean, we do corporate artwork, so we will have to, we use a miter saw, but it's cutting wood.
Yeah.
And then it's just assembly, which is miter saw, air compressor, that's the extent of it. But no heavy machinery. Again, I'd be glad to put a stipulation that there's no heavy machinery whatsoever.
Part
Does
of the
that-
reason is I almost want to have a discussion with Audie and share with you and maybe take a 5-minute recess, because is a rezoning necessary here for the goals of what Audie's looking for? And this is unusual for me, but I think it's just understanding and reviewing our zoning code. And I want to be clear to Planning Commission and the public. We will share a summary of that, of why, but and instead of doing it on the fly, maybe taking a couple minutes may be beneficial, if you so please.
That is fine with me.
Do we still want to hold the public hearing, though, since we noticed for it?
It can be done before or after the recess. So that might be up to you, and that may also be dependent on if the rezoning goes forward, so, yeah.
Mhm.
Maybe we hold a little conversation now, and the results of that would be known as part of the public hearing.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
If
That
that's
makes sense.
acceptable.
Okay. We will take a 5-minute recess.
Okay. Mike, can we use the council chambers? Okay, sounds good.
All right, great,
Okay,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Everyone stay seated, stay tuned.
Yeah,
It's open to if you guys want to listen, you're more than welcome to come.
that is old Jay's. Oh, no, I don't think the plumbing building was ever in, I don't know who had the plumbing build, I don't know who had OJ's
when we took it over.
And what are
before
they
it
planning on
was
doing with
OJ's.
it?
But I don't think it was
I think
the
they'll
plumbing
split it
place.
into, sorry.
I forget the name of that plumbing business, but they moved out here on Walton, north of Walton. Hodges, yeah, that's it. That's the building. Yeah, they had some kind of rehabilitation, facility at the old building. Okay, yeah. And the other one was OJ's Lounge. Back in the day.
Did they spell it O''Jays?
It's just OJ, yeah. It was a nightclub.
Would it welcome people of all races, or did they cater to African Americans?
Well, during that time, it wasn't a lot of, mixed, races. It was basically like a local bar.
More of a bar and club than a nightclub kind of thing?
It was,
Live music?
yeah, it wasn't live music. It was DJ. It was just a nice club. It was, I think they might have had food, but not much. It was just a kind of party place.
Okay.
Yeah, District 7.
Active in the 70s, 80s kind of thing, or more 60s, 70s?
Well, 70s, 80s, that was during my time. So I don't know before that. I don't know who had that building.
Okay.
But it's very popular, in the community, very popular. So did I understand he was gonna try to make that, maybe, a rental property or something?
Which one?
Either one. I thought I heard something about a tenant, unless they were talking about.
So the current building before us, I'm not familiar with the other ones, since that's not being questioned, but the current building before us, 44 Auburn, they were referencing that they may lease it. So it sounds like their first interest is to use it directly for their own business, but they may lease it.
long as they don't try to, put somebody, in there with some kind of, how can I say it, room and board.
Yeah, that would not be permitted based on the current code.
So you're gonna be behaving.
Or even
That's a good point, though, because most of the, industry is on the other side of Martin Luther King. Yeah.
What street do you play on?
I'm in District, 1 now, but I got property in 7.
Okay, what street is that on?
Edith, between Osmond and, Osmond and Whittemore.
Okay. Are there houses or just private land?
It's house and land. Yeah, I've been there for, how long? I think I bought it over every Wednesday. 85, I think. Yeah. And I get calls all the time, a lot of people want to buy it, property. But I said, no, I will not sell. Even the house I'm living in now, almost, every week. You probably get the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Say no, they're not interested. Not at this time. Yeah, that, Hodges Plumbing, it used to be, when they get a shipment, supplies, they used to block up the whole neighborhood there. With those big truck, 'cause he got that little shipping dock on the side there. But they were pretty quiet, they fit right in. And I went out there and talked to one of the guys out there, the new guy, they didn't know nothing about it, but the old guy, I forget his name, maybe Tom, Bob. He said, yeah, I was there, And so I see you called him, is that the owner?
No, just somebody that works there, his whole career. Salesperson. Yeah, at the historical study, I looked at the old city directories from the 50s or the 60s. There looks like there was bright glass windows along the front. So it was probably a retail space, maybe a small market.
Are you talking about
Yeah, that like when it was first built. It was probably the first.
He worked that in somewhere.
Could have been a pharmacy, could have been a fish place, could have been meat, could have been, something kind of like retail stuff.
I know when I came to town,
What year was that?
that was 1976.
What's your place of origin?
Oklahoma City.
Oh, yeah. I know there's too many Oklahomans that have made their way to Pontiac.
Well, I got a whole family here.
Okay.
And so next to that one, going back, east, going back west, I used to have a hotel.
1 minute, we'll be ready to go. Okay.
There was a hotel. And I
I've
think
heard that reference, I don't know the name of it.
yeah, I forget the name of it too, but I think it's still empty though. That land is still vacant.
We could have had you in there, I'm sorry. What city do you commute from, Mr. Bird? Oh, yeah? You grew up there too? No, I grew up in What high school? Yep.
Okay, we are back. And what do we know? I will
And the
defer.
time is 6:48, yeah.
The time is 6:48.
Yeah.
Do you know where your children are?
Okay.
I will defer. Go right ahead.
So if I may summarize for the public, the staff had a brief conversation.
Oh, quiet in the audience, please. Thank you.
Okay. Staff had a brief conversation with the applicant. We are summarizing that the land use that he is discussing this evening would be a C3, would require a C3 zoning district, and this is for a light manufacturing or also that non-hazardous storage distribution. Now, we can make that determination later, but it would require a C3. I will share that the applicant has offered 2 conditions for the rezoning, and so this would be an agreement that would go to City Council, but it is for your review this evening. And I want to share this was not a negotiation. This was offered voluntarily by the applicant. So I'm going to pass this around to Sam, and then, or down the line, but it stops at Sam. But I will need this after the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And essentially, Mike, if you want to read it into the record, what it says for those 2 lines.
For 484 Auburn Avenue in Pontiac, Michigan, the applicant, who is the property owner, offers these 2 stipulations under his very artistic signature. Stipulations: no heavy machinery and no outside storage except for dumpsters.
Okay,
So,
Mike did such a good job reading it.
so, so if we are to move forward with this, it's actually now request for zoning with conditions, rezoning with conditions.
so this is the same type of rezoning. This is still moving forward. These are conditions brought on by the applicant. You know, I would, if you're looking favorable, you would just add that condition of approval that the applicant has provided. So,
Okay.
and they'd be formally presented to city council. I know this, so.
And if,
Yes, go ahead.
and that carries with the property if it's sold, or is that condition?
What is
just-
being proposed this evening would carry with the property, and so any use that would require heavy machinery or have outside storage would require a conditional rezoning again to allow that use.
So if the applicant was thinking about using the grass area, that's grass now, for car storage, for someone to bring automobiles in, that would not be allowed?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. All right, so I think that we should open up public hearing now. Does that make sense?
I just want to be clear, we're going from a rezoning request from C1 to C3 to a request for conditional zoning to go, a request to go from C1 to C3 on a conditional basis?
With those 2 conditions, correct. And what would happen at the city council level is that once it's approved, there's actually going to be an agreement, and it would be recorded with the property. So it becomes official for future property owners and for city reference that those conditions are placed with the property.
I really like to see the business come here. I'm just wondering now, with the special exception, which I don't know if this is appropriate, I think that because there is a category that it goes into, one is eliminated from doing C3. I think that's the way the ordinance is worded, but with a special exception category, if the property changes hands, then that special exception item goes away.
If
With conditional
sorry.
zoning, I'm not sure what happens in terms of our zoning ordinance.
So with a conditional rezoning, a future property owner could do any use that is either permitted or have a special exception in the C3, with the exception of those 2 conditions that are placed on the property. So that stays with the property beyond just the current property owner or the current use.
So going back to our first slides where you said that these are the things with the little asterisks?
Yes.
That's for C3. Can you bring
Yep.
that back up so
Yep.
we can see what
Yes.
could potentially show up there? So those items could happen.
Yeah. I would conclude the first one probably would not be able to happen under this conditional rezoning. So,
Okay.
and this could be vehicle storage as a common one. This could be a landscaping business that maybe is selling, stuff to the general public would classify as that.
Okay.
But it would be allowed if the property were to change hands.
It would be allowed as long, but outdoor storage would not be permitted. So,
Outdoor storage.
and that would include automobiles.
And would that include outdoor retail sales?
Yep.
Okay, no outdoor storage except for dumpsters. That excludes outdoor retail sales?
Unless they took it
Yep.
not store it outside.
Yeah.
just
They
brought
would
it out
need a
for the
conditional
deputy.
rezoning to allow
Yeah.
outside storage on this property. And, you know, anything that is stored for a period of time, whether it's for sales, whether it's for operations, it's outdoor storage. And so it's not that it's a no-go, but it does require a conditional rezoning. And it's pretty common in the development industry sometimes to have a conditional rezoning and then a future property owner may go back for another conditional rezoning.
Okay. And the mini warehouse.
So that's essentially kind of what they're doing is a mini warehouse, right?
I actually consider it light manufacturing because
Microphone.
I consider it light manufacturing because of the assembly, but I think we feel confident with the mix of uses there, that they all qualify under the C3 district. We would make that determination once we had more floor plans and layouts, but we feel confident. We were looking at C1 uses that would be permitted, and we did not find any.
Okay. Because he had the pictures of the boxes all stacked up.
Yep.
Okay.
Now, does mini warehouse also cover facilities like the one on Walton, where they have a number of storage units that people can rent, temporarily?
What's the
And-
classification for self-storage? Yeah.
I believe it is
Self-storage.
mini warehouse.
Okay.
So,
Oh, so that would be permitted.
yep.
Ooh.
Unless he said he wouldn't do mini storage.
Or a future property owner, yeah. And this is the challenging thing, because I think there, Audie brings, the applicant brings in a wonderful proposal, but a rezoning is a permanent change in the zoning district.
Right.
And really, planning staff is just advising, considering all uses that could go in there. And, there may be different reasons and rationale, and really there are 10 standards. And, what staff is reviewing is looking at those 10 standards that are there. So.
Okay. I have a question, and I do want to let Sam ask a question. Is there a reason why which you already have C3 on your neighboring corner for the property you own, why you can't do what you want to do in that property that's zoned the way you need it to be?
It's too big of a space.
The space on
It's
the
too-
east
it's
of
too
you?
big. It's too large for us.
Okay. That sounds kind of, I'm trying to understand what that means. You have a building that you own that's zone C3, but it is too big. You can't partition it for what you would need to use?
It's possible, but we'd have to do a lot more work to it. It's just the size of 5,000 would be very comfortable.
Okay. That still sounds a little odd to me. I remember you had been in front of us a couple of years ago.
Yes.
What was that you came for?
I had a tenant that was looking. They moved to Ferndale during the whole process because it did take a while, and there was also the COVID. But they do ice cream sandwiches, which was the.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to think of the name.
not like Cool Jacks.
Cool Jacks. That's it.
Okay. Was that going to be at 500?
That was supposed to be 500.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that's your recall about the food.
Yes. Cool Jacks.
Okay. And how did they end up going, this completely sideline, how did they get to Ferndale? Because it took too long?
It took too long, and they found more of an ideal space. I think there was you have Garden Fresh that has a food incubation area nearby, so that was helping them as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
What's the square footage of 500 Auburn Avenue?
It's currently it's 17,500, but there's an auxiliary space on that far left or the far west, which is closer to Francis, and that's another 4,700 square feet.
And is there currently a tenant, or you're seeking
No,
to lease
we're
it?
still in the process. We have a building permit for rehabbing the place.
In case that was helpful context to the chair's questions.
Yeah, it does help. What was that building before?
That was Hodges Plumbing Supply,
Oh,
or Pump
okay.
and Supply.
Okay.
And there's a very good chance that one day we could, expand to take over that building. But at the moment, it's a little bit too large.
Okay. I noticed the back end, and I understand you've been doing some work, but it's looking a little, not very pretty back there.
It's not pretty on the outside, but on the inside, it's coming together. There's a lot of demo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can maybe use some more dumpsters to pick up the litter that's back there? It just
There's
doesn't
no
look
litter
like-
right now.
Okay.
There
When I
might be
drove
a
by there the
sofa
other
that
day.
someone dropped off a day or two ago, but we're going to grab that.
Okay. great.
Otherwise, if you look through the fence, there's just a trailer and nothing else.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would like Sam to ask questions. We haven't brought you to the microphone yet.
I think a lot of my questions have have already been addressed by Commissioners McGinnis and Northcross, and Commissioner Northcross has given me a lot more confidence in your vision with his testimony. I don't think I have any more, and I think the stipulations that you've self-imposed also alleviate a lot of my concerns with the potential uses. The concern was really just that it doesn't sound like you have a set business plan for this space, and that if the art one doesn't work, it could be automotive, or it could just go to any tenant and they could use it for whatever purpose they want. And that was a kind of a cause for concern for me. And but I think with those stipulations, I feel more comfortable with it.
Great, thank
Thank
you for that. All right, let me open up public hearing, and then we can just put a big bow on this. So I would like to open public hearing, and if you can state your name and address for the record, and we'll try and limit comments to 3 minutes if anyone would like to speak.
Thank you, Audie.
Thanks. Okay. Oh, do I sit down?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you all.
But you may not be sitting down for very long.
I got one quick question. Carlton Jones, 1323 Oakline Drive, Pontiac. Procedure-wise, is this something that's notified to the residents that's close to that property of this public hearing? Do notices go out?
For public hearings, yes, notices go out.
What's the range? Is it a certain range?
300
Correct,
Feet.
300 feet.
of the property.
Is that mail notices, paper note? What kind of notices go out?
My recall when I had them sent to me was they came in the mail,
And
but
Oakland
they're also
Press. Oakland
posted
Press.
in the newspaper.
Okay. Yeah, I'm familiar with the property over there, and I know there is close to residential property, and I'm quite sure that residents would have some kind of, if they had notice, they had a right to come here and voice their disposition about it one way or another. I think it's always helpful. So I'm listening real close on how this is being handled. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Someone's shy back there. He's getting up.
Chuck Johnson, 21 North Paddock Road. I'm concerned about how he's programming this zone change. Is the applicant basing this zone change in conjunction with the second building, which is on the east side of Francis Street, the old plumbing building? Now, we're not tying those two together for this zoning change, I hope. So each one of these properties have to stand on its own merits. There was a time when the council, some time ago, had to brainstorm of maybe getting a big supermarket or something to come into that area and kind of help build Auburn Road up to some kind of a different standard, so that the neighbors in the area would have some place to go shopping other than the little party stores. It never came to fruition, but I think that thought was still in the minds and the hearts of some folk. I wouldn't want to think that we're going to rezone this piece of property just to build some kind of a startup on Auburn Road. You worried about the minutes? She didn't say nothing, so I got all the time in the world.
He's my timekeeper, so.
Well, he running a little bit late.
Doing everything else.
Well, anyways, I was almost complete with my thought.
Okay.
I'm hopeful that that whatever the plan, whatever you folk decide, I hope that you're going to be looking at it from a futuristic point of view, not something that can happen today. And also, I'm looking at the vacant properties surrounding this particular building. How do we know, or should we be concerned about maybe buying up that vacant land and expanding and getting bigger? Are we going to stick with just the merits on this piece of property, and whatever action we have will be just for this piece of property? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chuck. Is there anyone else? Okay.
Carlton Jones again. The master plan that we're going by is from 2014. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and I'm apt to believe that that's the master plan that we have been using throughout our decision-making. And for whatever reason, it was zoned C1, and now there is a request to go C3, even though I do see some C3s in that same area. I'm feeling that there is some reluctancy to go with too much C3 in there for a reason based upon our master plan. So I just want us to be real conscientious that when we do put a master plan together, that it's for a reason. So we need to try to be very conscientious as we start deviating from master plan, because I truly want us to have a good, solid master plan for our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Charles Renfro, 243 Crestwood in Pontiac. And I just have one question, and that's C3. You say there's other C3s in the area, and I just like to know where they are. Anybody can tell me where the other 3 Cs are? I mean, I'm a former resident of District 7, and I know Hodges and the OJs, that was prior buildings. And I don't think I've seen any light manufacturing over there. I know they have some warehouses on Sanford and Auburn, and I can't think of any other places around there on this side of Martin Luther King on the east side. So is there any other C3s in that area?
If you look at the map, the C3 is in red.
So this is Martin Luther King right here. There's obviously a cluster of properties around there. And then this is Sanford right here. And then this is Francis, this is the subject property. So there's a couple on the south side at Sanford. There's a whole row on the north side between Sanford and Francis here. I don't know the history to know why it is C3, but you can tell by the built environment because there are some garages. There may have been, they might be for storage now. They may have been for vehicular service, years ago. So there may be that might be the reason why there are C3 zone properties. Are the uses that are on those properties maximizing the most intensity that they can? They're not. But we just want to prepare ourselves in the future, that anything could potentially request to go in there.
Well, I appreciate the gentleman want to come and give prosperity to our city. I appreciate that, and I wish him all the best. Also, that building on Sanford and Auburn, I know that's a warehouse. I had a friend that used to work there, but light industry like miter saws and compressors, as long as they don't do like they're doing to us over there in District 1, M1, I mean, they get us up late at night and all that. And so I hope he gets it, but I also want, the city to be responsible and make everybody accountable, right?
Thank you.
Indeed, thank you for your thoughts. Is there anyone else? Okay, I will close public hearing.
Okay.
Okay, so I think what we should do is do our last questions. I'm going to start with Sam. Let's get our thoughts out and then we'll make a motion.
No further questions or comments from me.
Okay, very good, thank you. Christopher?
The mini warehouse, that really bothers me because I've looked on Walton. I think that's been a very responsibly done operation, but there's a lot of them. And you have a lot of them in a very small area. On Huron, we have a 5 or 6 story bank building that we've rezoned for mini warehouse. And it's really opened my eyes as to what that designation of mini warehouse allows. I mean, on the other hand, I see the location in Pontiac as being ideal for warehousing. You have M59 going east to west, you have 75 going north to south, you have 24, you have 10, you have a whole bunch of things that are right here that could really support a warehouse type function where you drop goods off and bring goods in. But at the same time, you have that self-storage thing out there. And C3 opens that self-storage thing up. That's the only thing. You know, I think all the other uses are all right, but I'm just getting concerned with self-storage. I think I would really like to see that area developed. Was ecstatic. I was ecstatic when we looked like the Francis, the 500 Auburn building was going to be developed with the ice cream manufacturer. I thought that was going to be a great use and something that would spur a lot of development. But that didn't happen. That didn't happen. Now we have a building that's C3. Okay, we're left with that C3 designation. If we could find a way to allow what you want to do, but at the same time not have that that mini warehouse. I think the terms you've given us are great. It's just that mini warehouse designation and what that allows. I said, I'm not sure that that's in keeping with the rest of the community and the directions that we're going in. Gosh, I'd like to have your business. Gosh, I'd like to have your business. Thank you.
Thank you. You can keep noodling it until we vote. Okay, Michael?
No further questions.
Okay, and Tim?
Well, I think my comment to Commissioner Northcross, it's too small for a mini warehouse. Like unless they were to rebuild something and then we get to see them again, but 5,000 square feet.
Hey, Tim, can you speak into,
So I think it's too small. I mean, nobody's gonna build mini storage in a 5,000 square foot building. I'm assuming that's not your intention. The building next door, it's possible. There is a need for storage, but I don't see a lot of people doing it, but it's come before us a little bit. So I think what he did is he took some of the issues away when he said no heavy equipment, no outside storage, which is surprising because that cleans up the property quite a bit. So yeah, I don't think that's as much of a concern. And obviously, we need development there. There's a lot of buildings that have been touched in, well, I mean, Hodges how long's that been gone? 20 years, 30 years? Chuck, you probably know that. So you probably have to get up if you
Go up
want
to
to
the
add
microphone.
One other thing, I've been approached by city development, and one of the, I forget, maybe it's Rutherford, is there a gal, Rutherford? She works in the city.
Melanie?
Melanie, yes. She talked to me that she's looking, and we'd love to have 500 Auburn as a trade school, if we could have that done. I think it would be amazing, because you have the space, and you have the location's really central too. Just what I wanted to add, as opposed to storage and so on.
Okay, thank you for that additional.
Yeah, I don't have any further questions or comments.
Can we bring up the aerial for the parcel again, please? So you now own the rectangle that has the red border on it, but to the left of that,
We do not own.
okay, and that's zoned C1?
But they own to the south of it, that you don't see.
C1 as well.
And then we have part of that, the P1, the parking, maybe just a little bit of that.
Oh,
You said about 100 feet. So it goes pretty good.
oh. It's hard to see that that's what that is. It's kind of fuzzy there. How much P1 is there
In the city or in that?
in
piece
that
of-
little piece? Do you
That's
just,
easily maybe quarter acre.
okay. It's all that?
Yeah.
Correct, it's where the basketball court, all of that, so it goes all the way back.
Grass that goes to the fence.
Oh, so maybe there's a
There's two
fence.
parcels there.
Could you, do we have a, yeah, could you point where it's at? Because I might have misrepresented what I just
So
said.
I'd say, if I could guess, this lot over here, this is part of Auburn. This thing, it's residential, I guess, it's C3. We have probably something like that.
Okay, so I think it's this.
So maybe about half of it.
If
I think there's a fence there.
About half, so
Okay,
I couldn't be certain.
okay. And the use of parking is parking.
Parking, yeah. And Commissioner Shepard, if I could just share, like, it is the right of a property owner. They could, if they have proper parking, either at that P1 zoning district, a future property owner could demolish the existing building and rebuild a storage building up to 35 feet tall or even higher with variances. And I say that because I do see some of those facilities in larger metro areas. You know, it's hard to envision that on Auburn, but just that possibility is there.
And I see where you're going with that. If I were that person that was gonna develop that, I would buy the vacant lot next door
Yep.
and do it right on the road, so
Yep.
we may see stuff like that.
Yep.
I don't love storage either. They were trying to do it downtown. I'm not a big fan of it, but it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense right there, I don't think. But thank you.
I'm really torn on this. I really like your logo for Artwell. Did you create that?
I did not.
Oh,
I worked in developing it with the hammer.
yeah, whoever did it, and you helping.
It's from Kigo Creative, it's Mark Stewart.
Okay, thank you for that. We will support him. It's just it's a little, kind of a sad part of the road there on Auburn, and it needs love. But we're not always gonna be here as this day ends, will eventually fade away, and someone else can come in and take that property if it becomes a different zoning and do what they want with it. That is gonna be different than what you said that you would be limiting to. So I think it's important that we think about the long term too, for those of us who are in the city, because that's what our job is to think about long term. I'm gonna let someone make a motion and let's see how this goes. Who'd like to make a motion?
We don't have one written out, do we?
Planning Commission can use everything after the comma. If you want to consider approval, you can change denial to approval, and all I ask is the conditions placed by the applicant at the end of that would suffice. So, Planning Commission recommendation is, or make a motion for a Planning Commission recommendation of approval for the rezoning of case ZMA 23002. I apologize for the typo, from C1 to C3 zoning district with the conditions placed by the applicant.
Okay, who wants to make the motion?
Can give it a shot.
Okay,
Based on the applicant's request, the planning commission votes to approve for the rezoning of case CMA 23-002 from C1 to C3 zoning district with the following stipulations self-imposed by the applicant. One being that there will be no heavy machinery, and two, that there will be no outside storage except for dumpsters.
is there a support? Okay, let's do roll call.
Who was the second?
Here's my support.
He's our silent night up there.
Microphone.
Shepherd?
Yes to approve.
Okay. Parlov?
I'm going to have to say no on this one.
Okay.
I deny.
North Cross?
No to deny. Well, I
Henley?
want to deny, no.
Yes to approve.
McGinnis?
Yes to approve.
Okay. The motion passes 3-2, and I will work with the applicant for when this is scheduled for city council. We may have some agreements to draft up before that gets there, but that's it.
Great,
So-
thank you. Thank you for your input. Thank you for coming.
Guys.
And for the community's benefit, this is a recommendation to city council, so there will be 2 readings before the city council, and that's 2 opportunities at least for the public to further offer their input at the city council level.
Thank you. Okay, we are on to our next item of business. We have item B that is not going to be heard because they withdrew their application. We are now going to go to old business. Do we have old business?
So tonight, we have an informational session on a preliminary site plan. So I'm going to get into a small presentation, explain what an informational session is. And then really, this is an opportunity for the applicant to have a discussion with Planning Commission. And I want to remind, because it's informational, there's no decisions being made tonight, formal decisions, but there is an opportunity for feedback. And then the applicant will be resubmitting to the city, and there will be a case before you likely at the beginning of May where this can be voted on for a site plan. So this is application SEP 23002. The address is 123 Wesson Drive. The applicant is Vincent Wolf from the Trinity Mission Baptist Church. And the proposed use is the demolition and rebuild of a portion of the church. The zoning district, believe it or not, for a church, it's actually light manufacturing M1. So it's a little unique in that situation, but that really marginally affects the site plan process. The applicant requests to demolish a portion of the church and rebuild the middle portion with a rec facility in the rear of the property. Proposal includes updating the parking lot, the rear parking lot, and adding a drop-off entrance there. So this is the location on Weston Street. As you can see, the loop that is dominated in the center of the property. And I have, this is showing the property lines. So, and this is Weston up top here. And is this Maple? Is that the street name? Yeah, so this is Maple going north and south. This is the main building of the church. These 3 sections, there are 3 sections. The west, the center, and the east is how I'm going to refer to them, is right here. The majority of the parking lot is actually across Maple. So in this proposal, just due to some outdatedness, some maintenance issues, they're looking to actually demolish this middle portion and rebuild it. So that's really what we're going to be reviewing with the site plan lens this evening. So the area is within the red triangle is really where the site improvements are being proposed. So anything outside that red triangle is really not for construction, not up for any changes. So these are 2 renderings provided by the applicant, and I just want to walk through these with you. The top is on Wesson Street, and I'm going to ask the applicant just to speak about the materials that they're proposing and introduce that to you. Obviously, this is a big enhancement with what's there from the slides. And then the bottom is what is being modified to the back. There's, along with the parking lot, they actually have this little drop-off entrance. And so really it's going to be part and parcel to some of the events that they're having at the church. So this is, again, showing some renderings. I'm not going to go into detail of this, but I do want to have the applicant and their architect who is here to describe this in a little bit more detail. The top one is along Weston Street. The bottom is the rear against the parking lot. And then this just shows the site plan for the parking lot improvements where drivers would be coming off of Maple here. There are some parking spaces on the south end along the property line. There are some handicap spaces here. There is a turnaround where you can have the drop-off for your patrons, your lovely parents, and then there's some additional parking that they're adding where they can fit it on the site. So, and I did have a floor plan. I apologize that it did not make it into the slide. The one thing I would just want to add for reference, though, is the center portion is really their religious events and their facilities. They are adding a basketball court. If you look to the right of this, right here, so it's a rec facility that is an accessory use to a church. Churches often have accessory uses, but the church is still, the religious institution is still the primary use. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to the applicant. I really, this is an opportunity for you. They have received some comments from fire and engineering and planning. I think the planning ones are in your packet. It's very preliminary, just itemizing some things that need to be in there. And really, a few things just mentioned in the highlights is just improvements on the line weight for review, the need for better pedestrian access to the rear entrance, and just some small stuff with the lighting plan. So those are just things I wanted to highlight. But with that said, I will pass it off to the applicant, Mr. Vincent Wolf, or Pastor Vincent Wolf. Correct?
Good evening.
Yeah.
I am Pastor Vincent Wolf. I am not the pastor of Trinity. That is Pastor Tolbert. I am Vincent Wolf of Wolf Consulting, the general contractor for Trinity Baptist Church. We are proposing to do this project because it's needed, first of all, for Trinity, because of dated building, water damage, roof, and mold, and things of that nature. So the building has to come down. Asbestos and all of those things have been taken care of. We are in the process now, any day, to tear this building down. The church building is connected to the administration building, the building that needs to come down. We have separated the two buildings at the roof. The water, the gas, and things of that nature has been disconnected, where we have the clearances from the certain utility companies. So we are ready to tear this building down. I'm just waiting for the right time to tear the building down because of weather and things of that nature is the reason the building has not come down as of today. However, within the next couple of weeks, I am prepared to tear this building down to move forward. One of the things that you showed in your slide was the major parking lot on Maple, and that's actually not the main parking lot. The main parking lot is on the other side of Wesson Street. Okay, that is a huge parking lot. That is the main parking for this building. Once this building, the building that is coming down is about 20,000 square feet. The building that we are proposing that we're going to build is about 49,000 square feet. Same height, keep the same height lines, things of that nature, but beautify the current church building and family life / school building with a little glass, just like hanging a picture on a wall. But it's going to just be a stained glass, something that just beautifies the entire area. So the building is a prefab steel building. It is a steel structure. The steel structure is actually the tall building that you have here now, which is the Family Life Center / the school. It is a steel structure, but you would not know it because of the way the building is finished with all brick. So therefore, the tall building, which is 4 stories tall, that is the current school Family Life Center. The building that's in the middle would be actually a steel building, which is still going to be the same height as the current building, which is 30 feet tall. Height lines will not change. So the building is almost shaped like an L. The middle building, which is the new building, will turn eastward behind the school, no, west, behind the school, which will be the gymnasium. Okay? This being a steel building, metal roofs, and all of those things, the front of this building and the back of the building will be consistent with the 2 current buildings that will remain, brick-wise. Even though it's a steel building, A steel building will give you more installation than a brick and mortar building. The installation in these buildings, such as the roof, for example, is 20-something inches of installation, plus a steel roof that gives you 50-year warranty on the roof. So the makeup of the center building will be brick, stucco, as some call it, or drive it, and glass. To match the center building, the church building, we will put the same type of glass on the front of the church building. So it will all be consistent. Now, where it looks totally different is the back. The back is the main area where you can reach banquet facility, things of that nature that is in the Legacy Center, the new building that we are building in the middle. So the atrium and the drop-off, if you was dropping auntie or grandmama off, somebody off, that it'd be under a covered porch area, and it's just a drop-off area, no parking in this particular space. Behind a couple of walls would be like a two-car garage that we don't want the public to see, because a garage gives an ugly look sometimes. So just that it's not seen, it's behind a screen wall. The delivery is going to be behind a screen wall. The trash, things of that nature, is in an enclosed area. It's just to beautify that area where it does not look like a square building that has just been dropped in a backyard, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So it's just to beautify that area. And then in the back, there's really only a few parking spaces because parking is not needed in the back area. So most of the parking in that back area is handicapped. Because of the parking on Weston and on Maple, an additional parking was not needed, and we're not adding extra seating to the capacity of the church building, to the sanctuary. The capacity is not changing. We are not, only thing we're doing to the sanctuary is beautifying the outside, that it will be consistent with the other two buildings. With that being said, the tallest building is the school. As you can see that in the lower rendering. That will be consistent. Right now it's just painted cinder block. However, that will change to stucco or drive it to match the whole entire back of the building, if that makes sense. Lighting. In the reply that I sent, I showed that 4,000 K of lighting projected downward. That is in our site plans for lighting, that it will not be a glare into, even though it's not a neighborhood, but if it was a neighborhood behind the church, behind this new building, it would not be a glare into people driving or into people's homes. The light is projected, most of the lighting is projected downward. You have a couple of pole lights, and those are just decorative lights like you would have on your porch. Low voltage, low wattage lighting. With that being said, pretty much this is a renovation, even though it is a new building, but it's really a renovation of the existing building that needs to come down because of mold and all those kind of things. And in the site plan and in our drawings, it will get more into detail as to the characteristics of the building. We have to move a fire hydrant. We're adding a new fire hydrant, fire lane, fire approaches, a fire driveway that'll be able to get all around the entire building. A couple of questions was asked about the electrical. All the electrical is underground currently. There is cable and I believe phone lines running. However, those will be moved underground as well. So it will not be a blockage if case fire department has to get through or DTE or someone has to get through. Everything is being ran underground. Transformers and all of those things are ran on Weston Street. So that is pretty much our project. We're just trying to meet the needs of the people, not only of Trinity, but of the Pontiac area with the gymnasium, things that we offer, after-school programs, feeding programs. Trinity has been since 1918, have been around Pontiac a long, long time. If I can look in the room, it's been around longer than all of us in the room, hopefully. Parking lot, paved asphalt, things of that nature, sidewalk. It's a lot, and it's a big undertaking, a project that'll take probably a year and a half. But the building itself, to stand the building up, I'll stand the building up, since it's a steel building, I'll stand the building up within 90 days. When I say standing up the building, after the foundation has been poured, the building will be enclosed, doors, windows, roof. The building will be completely enclosed. There are some other requirements, such as street signs, things of that nature. We've addressed all of the issues. I think it was approximately 17 issues, I believe, that we were to address, and they've been addressed and resubmitted with a new site plan to move this right along.
Great.
If I may ask the applicant
Yes,
just a
please.
question. We went through a pre-application meeting and you've made some great adjustments. I just wanted to ask about the use. It's a banquet facility at sometimes, but it's a church normally. You know, if you had patrons coming, no matter whether they were walking to church or driving and parking maybe across Wesson, in the hours that the church is not operating as a church, but maybe it's a banquet facility, you know, is it anticipated that a patron could enter from Wesson or from the south side here where we're showing on the map, or is it possible, or is it anticipated that they would just be coming, you know, if it was just a banquet facility, that was the only operation happening, that only those doors would be open?
So let's clarify something. The banquet facility and church sanctuary is two different buildings.
Okay, yep.
They're connected, but they're two different buildings. If during sanctuary time, during worship service, the banquet facility is not operating at all whatsoever. When the banquet facility is being used, the sanctuary is not being used. So if we was having, I don't know what kind of event I want to call it, but if we was having an event, can we go back to the back of the building?
Sure.
The main entrance to the banquet facility is right here where the red vehicle is.
Okay.
That is where the entrance to get into the banquet facility. If you look on our floor plan, everything else coming off of Wesson Street are classrooms, things of that nature. Bookstores, things of that nature. The back of the building represents the banquet facility. And so if we were having someone in here wanted to lease out the banquet facility, because it would be totally catered, someone want to lease it out, you're more than welcome to do that, but the entrance will be from the back of the building.
Perfect.
I hope that answers the question.
It does, and I really appreciate it. I think from staff's comments in the report, I think we're advocating for a crosswalk to just the sidewalk, just to make sure that patrons of the site for the banquet facility from the parking lot just would have safe egress and easy access between their parking, where they're parking and the entrance.
And that is addressed in the corrections that were made.
Perfect.
It has been addressed in the corrections that we received.
Okay, thank you. So really, I want to set the table for Planning Commission as to what this is. You know, tonight is an opportunity to understand the proposal, to provide feedback for the applicant. It's also an opportunity to ask the applicant to ask any questions of Planning Commission. And then the applicant has until April 17th to resubmit the plan set for review for the May 4th meeting. And if there's an emergency that middle part has to come down, Pastor Wolf, I can talk to you separately. We can definitely work with the building department. If there's a true emergency, we'd be happy to work with you. So.
Thank you.
Go.
Wonderful. I will let my fellow commissioners ask questions, but I noticed the cost on this is noted as $7 million. Do you have all your funding in place already too?
Funding is taking place,
Okay,
yes.
okay. I hope you get it all.
Excuse me? Well, I hope they get it all too.
And the bank has it. And it's all secure. Okay, I will start with Mr. McGinnis. Questions?
I think it's all very clear and straightforward. I'm grateful for the continued impact and role that the historic Trinity Missionary Baptist Church has in our community. It's a real anchor for this vicinity of our community, and I hope that your continued reinvestment and expansion and improvements will spur further investment improvements from what's mainly vacant land that's surrounding. Historically, it was very thriving and very densely developed, and I hope that there can be adaptive reuse for the land. We've seen a little bit of that, but that there's still more vacant land to grow in the, quarter mile or tenth of a mile even around your site. So the congregation and the building has been a beacon in many ways for the community, and I hope it can be a beacon and inspiration for the neighborhood as well, to see further investment, be it residential, commercial, or other civic purposes. But thank you to the Trinity congregation and Dr. Tolbert for his leadership, and I look forward to seeing what will be a really substantial expansion and upgrade. No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Tim?
So first of all, well done. Thank you for bringing this to us. It looks great. My first thoughts, and it kind of changed as I went through this, when I was looking at your renderings. So the ephes is on the back side. Yeah, any of your stucco or ephes is on the back side of the building, correct?
That is correct.
The rendering we're seeing here, that's the front.
That is
It's gonna
correct.
stay that way.
That is
Okay,
correct.
good. It looks beautiful. Are you repaving everything, or?
The parking lot is not paved, so we're going to pave it.
Okay, so
That
the
will
one
be paved.
across Wesson, that gets paved?
The
Or no?
Cross Wesson on which,
I'm sorry. it's the
Cross
north-
Wesson.
North of the property, yep.
that's already paved.
That's our,
That's-
okay, so that's not being repaved, it
No,
stays
it
the way
doesn't
it
need
is?
to be repaved, it's striped.
Okay, it's fine, so maybe I'm thinking of the one that, maybe I
I
didn't.
think we're
yeah.
talking on the side on
Yeah.
Maple Street.
Yeah, I drove them both, but I must be thinking about the other one that's a little rougher looking.
That's Maple,
Yeah, oh, that's Maple, yep. All right.
that's Maple.
So it looks great. I don't really, we'll see the plans when they come. Thank you for doing it, and it looks like you got good materials with what you're using, so I'm happy. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Sam?
I just have two quick questions for staff. Does the zoning ordinance state one way or the other whether parking requirements for accessory building uses have to be accounted for?
For a commercial property, it does. And so, but I would look at this very similarly than a shopping center where you might have multiple uses operating at different hours. And so, as the applicant stated, that the banquet facility is open when the church is not and vice versa. That does not impact their parking requirements here. So.
Okay. And then for the M1 district, are there site coverage or green space requirements?
I can verify that when this next comes back to you, but I do not believe that there is.
Okay.
So,
Those are all my questions, but I think this looks great, and I'm excited to see it come back because I think it has the potential to be an
Yeah.
absolute gem.
Thank you. Mr. Northcross?
I think well done. And this is not Newman, this is not Trinity's first go-around. I'm a member of Newman. But my father was a member of Trinity, and my grandfather actually was the first pastor back in 1929 that erected the first building.
Wow.
Brought him out of the basement. The basement had been dug by Allen Noble Sr., and since that time, Trinity has redone their building, its current building that we're looking at, and now they're renovating that. So there's a history in this area, and I think they have a great track record of putting up good facilities, being in the community, using those facilities, and not only just drawing from the immediate surrounding community, but actually stretching out throughout all of Oakland County. So this is, I think, good for the immediate Pontiac area and also good for all of Oakland County. I think excellent. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and bringing this to us this evening and explaining what's happening. definitely will be a big improvement. Not that it is a bad situation over there, but this is going to be really stunning when it's all completed. People who've been on the commission here with me the longest know I'm not a big fan of Drive It. So can you give me the percentage of Drive It that's going to be on the building?
Well, you won't see it.
But for those that do when they're parking, how
That's what I'm
much
saying.
Drive It will?
That's just that small amount, you won't see it.
So it's not visible anywhere from the ground?
No, well, it's visible from the ground. This is a two-story building. All of this going across is two-story.
Okay,
This is the roof line of the school.
right,
This is what we propose to drive it,
okay,
because it's already cinder block, and there's nothing else to put over it. Right now, it's painted, and we know what paint and water don't
Right.
mix.
right,
But the best way to cover that is with drive it, not aluminum siding, not vinyl siding. The best way to do that is drive it / stucco.
okay. I'm not an architect or a construction person, and so I guess I defer to staff. That's something that percentage-wise is acceptable on that part, on that building?
You'll get a more larger analysis from when the site plan actually comes for you for a decision, and that can be evaluated. Generally, for something that's not very visible by the right-of-way and in a smaller percentage as an accent material almost, there's not as much scrutiny when it comes to architecture, but we'll review that and put it in proper context at that time.
Okay,
So.
that sounds great. The other question, which, because of its location, it's kind of like a little green oasis where this building is sitting right now, and it's very close to our Clinton River Trail. Is there thought about adding more landscape than what's currently at the site?
On the front of the building, it is what it is because of setback. The back of the building, I need most of that land for the building and parking and things of that nature. However, in the amount of additional landscape, it is modest, but it meets your ordinance requirements.
Okay,
And so we will put in, whether it's the delicious trees and things of that nature to satisfy the requirements, but our goal is to beautify it. And so if we have extra land, it won't be mulch. You know, we propose to put in greenery, green belt. So where we don't have parking and things of that nature, we're not, like I said, we're not putting in rocks, we're not putting in mulch. We prefer to put in grass, trees, and things of that nature.
okay, that helps,
And this is one of the challenges with it being an M1 property, not
Yeah.
next to residential.
right?
That, you know, obviously you can have a discussion, you can ask, but, you know, the requirements are what the requirements are.
I
so,
understand, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure, well, I understand. That is all that I have for the moment. I'm just very excited. Go ahead, Christopher.
You mentioned this is a challenge of the M1 property. At the same time, in the master plan that was done in 2014, we were looking at redoing a large swath of that property that I think was inclusive of Trinity Church, but going south. And that was being designated as, what was institutional parkland, I think it was, or something like that, in that master plan. So we were starting to acknowledge that, yeah, this area has changed from where it originally, how it had originally been zoned. You know, at one time, there's a church just to the south, Newman Church. At one time, that was Sam Allen's junkyard. You know, and Newman has come in and built that, used that property, rechanged it, put their buildings there. We're also looking at a big influx, possible influx of folks that will be over in just to the southwest of that, along what used to be Lakeside Homes. There's some major developments being discussed there. So, yeah, this you know, our zoning here, we probably really need to look at again very quickly. A lot of things in that 2014 master plan were never implemented, and that we really need to, one, look at what wasn't, well, I guess number one, look at where we are today, given all the developments, and then plot a plan of where we want to go for the future.
And that could be an upcoming conversation with Planning Commission on the future land uses and zoning for this district, so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I think we are all set.
Okay.
Thank you for coming
So
in.
if I may share, Pastor Wolf, I think we're going to do a quick analysis probably over the next week, but I'd like to have a conversation with you early next week to see the schedule moving forward. I'm open to the possibility that this move forward in April. I'm going to verify all the drawings we have. If there's something I didn't receive, I'll just verify that. But we thank you and your consultant team coming from Indianapolis this evening. So,
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
now we are down to,
I think he's calling for a break.
oh, you'd like a break? I think we're almost done. All right, you can have 5. We will be back in 5 minutes.
I just want to say hello. I think I met you years ago at a Senator Gary Peters gig.
That's very possible.
Because your son went on to work for him, is that right?
He worked, well, Stabenow.
Oh, Stabenow.
He's been with her about 4 years, and now he just got a new job at the White House.
Oh, wow. What's the role?
Tax legislator, something or other. He's responsible for all the Democratic senators.
Hey, we're back, everybody. Welcome back. All right, so what we're going to do is we are going to now do the new business, the application address about the information session regarding the zoning text amendment presentation.
Yep, so
Okay.
I have a little presentation this evening.
Okay.
Should be about 5 minutes. This is introducing to you what is looking to come forward at a future planning commission meeting. We're likely to see this in ordinance form in April. I will have some questions for you afterwards. But what the city is looking to do is bring 4 buckets of zoning amendments to you. Now, these are not comprehensive buckets, but it's just the way, or comprehensive amendments, but it's just a way to describe to you. So the list that is up here are just immediate things that we think we can fix to help the betterment of the city. And I'll explain why each of those we are going forward with that. The first one has to do with accessory structures and pods. There has been an increase in demand for pods for beyond short-term or construction needs in the city, particularly residential neighborhoods. I think the city is open. If you need this for a very finite amount of time, we're looking to establish what that is and set rules that we can share with the public that you can have this, but for so long. Now, staff feels the current code regulations do prohibit these to begin with, but we want to explicitly prohibit it and the time when it is permitted, the timeline for it. Take out the vagaries where necessary. So this is not, this is not a lot of legislation being proposed. It's just really cleaning up and clarifying. So. Number 2 has to do with donation bins. There's some observations that there are many donation bins existing in the city, but many of those bins have contents that are not removed. Whether it's coming from an outside source or just there's maintenance issues, it's really creating eyesore problems and outside storage issues just with the collection of unused items. So. While it is our understanding at this time an outright ban is not possible from the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, staff is exploring restrictions such as, restricting them to side and rear yard, proper screening, and certain maintenance requirements and penalties within our legal authority of police power. So I'm not there yet as to exactly what we have, but we are proposing something that you will be reviewing at the next meeting. So. The next has to do with mixed-use district. This is a zoning district that exists in the city. The current standards are very light in terms of process, responsibility, and the standards. And it is really a concern for me. It's a concern for our planning consultant. And even when we're reviewing Stonegate, which has been something that was presented to City Council, while it's not not an issue necessarily with the zoning regulation, I think we have flagged this that really is something that needs to be organized. And this is not, the goal with this is that we really want to propose amendments to increase the legislation in it that provides requirements, standards, and process for approvals that are consistent with other jurisdictions and mixed-use standards around the state. So we want to make sure we're doing our best for best practices and really provides clear direction to the applicant in the city of what exactly we're doing because it's so vague, we really want to clean this up. And I do want to share that this is being done citywide. So this is not done for one district. We should be looking at it. And we're not creating specific architectural regulations for this. We're just creating the architectural process for how those standards would be created. But we are very interested in using this if a proposal for Crystal Lake goes forward. As you may know, there were several public open houses last year, and there's interest in applying for a Crystal Lake development, and this would aid that. And I want to really emphasize this would aid the applicant and the city at the same time. So, the next one has to do with minimum residential lot widths. If there's a history about this, I'm more than happy to lend my ear to someone, whether it's in this meeting or afterwards. Many lot widths in residential neighborhoods are 40 feet wide. The 2014 master plan does not specifically address lot widths, but the 2012 zoning update, who was done by Wade Trim, the minimum lot width was increased to 60 feet. making lots unbuildable. Now, some lots are able to be buildable because you're not doing a lot split, but there is some conflicting language within our code. A lot of people are either requiring to get variances right now, or they're required to buy adjacent properties. And that's really, it's the luck of what you would have with the neighboring properties.
Or they're just not building at all because they think that it's not viable and it's not permitted.
Excellent point. So what staff is proposing is decreasing the minimum lot width back to 40 feet, really to make this in alignment with the built environment that's out there. Now, we're going to review this as part of an upcoming master plan process to develop, and from there it's going to develop strategies. But I think this is something that would help us for the next year or two until those strategies get in place. So this is not a major change in terms of how much legislation you'll see, compared to the marijuana ordinance. But this is really just something simple to help us really promote our neighborhoods and development going forward. So really, this is the review, and I apologize that I've lost the presentation up there. These are the 4 buckets of what we're taking forward. So we're presenting an ordinance to you. I will have a memo and an ordinance like we did for marijuana. We will have a public hearing. Now, my question to Planning Commission is, we have 2 options. I could present the ordinance on April 5th and advertise the public hearing. I could do that as soon as tomorrow to advertise in the Oakland Press, and it is a citywide ordinance. The only thing I would ask Planning Commission is if you would rather review the ordinance for 1 month and have the public hearing a second month, we could do that and the city could hold off on that public hearing. So that really is a question for Planning Commission this evening.
For what you have on the table in front of you for petitioners, does the review make a difference if we do it in April or May?
We do have some additional items in April. I'm not afraid, and with the staff that we have here, I don't think we're going to have I'm not anticipating a lengthy meeting with a lot of public comments with those cases. So.
Okay. So if we reviewed it in April and decided in May, that works for what you have?
That could work, or if you wanted to decide in April. Part of this is Planning Commission's ability to review over 5 or 6 days between the time we send out the packet and have some discussions. Are these items small enough that you think we can do this in one evening, have a public hearing? And that's not to say we can't have a public hearing in April and then, table it for Planning Commission to decide in May. If you want to review those public comments, review the context a little further too. The question tonight is, when would you like to have the public hearing for this?
Okay.
I would suggest that we try April, and like you just said, we can table it if we can't get deep enough into it. If everyone else would agree with that or not.
Your thoughts?
I'm comfortable with that, and I see Commissioner.
Yeah, I just have a question. Do you know as of yet what the schedule looks like in terms of new business or other public hearings for that date?
I don't have the full list. I normally share this under staff communications. We have 3 medical marijuana facilities that applied. They went through the plan review, and at the last week when I was putting together the packet, and the Carlisle firm had flagged one of these, I didn't realize all 3 of them actually applied for a retail adult use. And we had met with all of them in pre-application meeting. They all had shared it was medical marijuana, but it was too late. And so they've been tabled. They've all submitted what they need to. They will all be on the April agenda. We do have a right-of-way vacation. And then we've got 1 or 2 other items that may be on there. I do not see anything that is major, but those site plans with the medical marijuana are the major ones. So. And if I may add, 2 of those are using existing buildings. Only one of them is redoing their sites. So 2 of those, it's going to be a much quicker review as it is. So Commissioner Northcross, I apologize.
No.
Yeah.
I was. Thank you for giving me some more time to pull together my thoughts. I'd like to go with April. The biggest question I have is, will I be able to view the actual change on a citywide basis of some of these changes we're making, and how would that be presented? The effect of these changes. I'm I'm thinking if they're fairly benign type of things that doesn't make a difference, yeah. And if we can present it in such a manner that we have assurance that that's the case, I mean, we cover a lot of ground. We have a current zoning map that's all over the place. Just what does this do? Is my question. In terms of, for instance, the 40-foot, what does that do? Would there be a map showing how many lots are not at 40 feet, are under 40 feet? Or, I'm just trying to think, what does this, what would a change like that do?
The only thing I can really promote to Planning Commission, just understanding this information, knowing an ordinance is coming forward, there are thousands of properties in the city that are 40 feet. So in terms of trying to come up with a number, I don't know that we have a full means to calculate that, with software or anything like that. But I'd encourage you to look at the county's property gateway if you haven't been there before, and just spend 15 minutes going in there. And they have the parcel dimensions on a lot of those parcels, and just go through some of your neighborhoods and understand, the criticality of this. I'm going to try to touch on that in the memo, just, the amount of lot splits and combinations we've had over the past year, the amount of instances of this occurring. I understand the question. Sometimes you're looking for tangible metrics to that are there. But it is a citywide issue that is beyond just metrics. It really is a logistical issue, I think, for development in our residential neighborhoods.
Yes, it is. I'm thinking back to the Weaver School discussion that we had, where the folks are looking at an increase in the density in the area. And they're concerned that density is going to not promote community growth. And I'm not sure exactly what knobs and tools one needs to have and what knobs they need to turn to promote community growth. But that's where I'm going with this 40-foot rule. I think it's something that we probably need to address. On the other hand, we look at one of the cities I've become very familiar with is Washington, D.C. I mean, that place is dense.
Yeah.
But they have some areas that are thriving and growing, and then they have some other areas that are really challenged. The houses on the outside, you see a lot of the same architectural features, but what is it that makes one area with houses that are probably built about the same time go, and what is it that makes another area where it doesn't go? And then we've had some proposals for some small houses to be put in certain areas and really pushed together. Does this promote more of that? Less of that? I'm not sure.
So if I may address, really, I think from staff's perspective, we are making this change because of the built environment. We're not modifying that it's going to make this large transformation throughout the city. But what you shared in your thought process, your analysis, is really the bones, the root of, I think, that discussion item through the master plan process. And I think it's going to be one of the pillars. It's not the only one, but it's one of the pillars that I think we need to discuss as a city and have a conversation to go forward. So I think this one, really, the analysis is simple because we're trying to just fit the existing environment and not make a transformative change. And really the 60-foot change was made without merit of master plan or accompanying legislation or direction to help the existing neighborhoods in the city. So
it sounds like April.
Yep.
Everyone's
All right.
Give it a try.
We will do the public hearing and see how that goes. And yep, thank you. And if you have any questions on that, or if there's a thought process that you'd like me to address with that in a memo, please let either the Chair Parlov know or let me know, and we'd be happy to try to
Perhaps
incorporate
we
that
can
in.
even enlist the county. I don't know in their property database if they would be able to list maybe key factors and then query that database to kick out coordinates within the city that might meet the specifications that we're asking for and give us some, I tell you, a picture is worth a whole lot. A picture is really worth a whole lot. And if there's some way of condensing this down, I know, like, I'm going back to kindergarten where I had the books with the pictures in them, but it serves a whole lot. And the more analysis that can be done prior to it getting here, I think the easier everybody agrees to it and says, yeah, that's the way we want to go.
Would a sample neighborhood be good? Maybe we don't do it citywide, but we just show an example with neighborhood for your perspective.
I just throw that out there, and I yield to your expertise. I know you probably have given some big overall types of discussions, and then break it down to the smaller items, that sort of thing.
If I may, I would agree with that. I think if you find one little section and you show us what the lot lines are in that section, and maybe a visual of that, that might help everybody. If that helps you.
As long as we feel comfortable projecting that to larger areas.
No, I agree. He'll take a piece that's kind of similar to what the rest of the city is, I would assume.
And this is a minimum lot area, so it's not, when you're subdividing, you can still, make it 60 feet wide. You can still make it 80 feet wide. It's just the minimum to be allowed to build. So.
I remember when I used to work for the city, by the way, engineering department on the survey crews. And I remember some of the colorful names of some of the subdivisions, like Ferry Farm number 1. And some of those, I'm thinking some of those were some real small lots.
Like 30 foot?
Yeah, yeah. Now, I don't know what's happened since then and what that means, but I was saying, whoa, okay, this might be good. This might be, I don't know. I don't know. It's hard for me to visualize right now without really.
That's right. I mean, we are standing on the hallowed grounds of planning and development from generations past, when it was maximize the land, shove as much as possible in. But a fun historical fact, Ferry Avenue and the Ferry Farms neighborhood, there was a Ferry seed company. They literally were harvesting seeds in that section of Pontiac. So today, what we would consider South Boulevard and Woodward Avenue, everything kind of at that southern tier, the northeast corner of that intersection was a massive seed farm for a company based in Detroit, Ferry Seeds. So they have the Ferry Street, and that's a beautiful historic district as well that's named for that same company. So we have Ferry Avenue, but if you look at the plats, it's showing Ferry Farms is the name of the technical subdivision.
Very cool. Thank you, Mike.
That's my only comment. I'm game. I'm willing to give it a try.
So a little sample would be helpful.
And if you need to, you could do a sort of a representative sample from a few different corners of the city if you find that they're too widely different.
My experience is almost every neighborhood is 40 feet wide. And if it's not 40, it's because people have combined them or subdivided. But I'd be happy to show either one or two, just to give a representative sample. And we may look to see if there's any differences in neighborhoods that maybe have a different
Because it'd be helpful to know if we're really talking about something that's like the southern 2/3 of the city, and it didn't because they're doing it in the 1940s, 50s, 60s. It didn't, but probably they split those lots all up the same way.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Planning Commission.
Thank you. So now we are ready for some public comment. I would like to open up public comment. Please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record.
How many minutes?
We'll do 3.
3? I don't know how to reset this thing, so we're going to
You
do
just
count
start.
up.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah, Carlton Jones, 1323 Oakland Drive. Let me say, you can start on the south side of Pontiac. Most of those lots over there were 40-foot lots. And if you had a home that was in the middle of 2 or 3 40-foot lots, you was landlocked. You couldn't do anything with those lots on the side. You had to either try to tear down the one in the middle to put them 3 together to get 60 feet. So I don't know where it came from. It really locked a lot of people out of doing anything with those 40-foot lots. I was brought up in a home that was on a 40-foot lot, and then we ended up with 2 40-foot lots beside us and couldn't do anything with it because they made those kind of changes like that. So, Mark, I commend you for trying to look at that. Sometimes we make some changes in things we think we're trying to improve, but really it's hurting the existing individuals who've already living in places. And so I just want to say, and commissioners, I was listening today and I seen how you guys worked through some things. You took in the credibility of somebody who came before you. Those factors do make a difference. So when you do know the history of people, it makes a difference sometimes in your decision making. And even when we get credible staff in here making recommendations, we're trying to do the best job. So I commend you all for that. But I want to say that's a very important part that we get this master plan together so we can have something, we can keep ourselves together. We got to try to stay together as a city because we got a heck of an opportunity. And I think what Mike was saying earlier about what the plans were for Auburn Street, I always thought Auburn Street could be something great. And we need to kind of buy into what we want to plan for our city. Now, I do want to say that I'm very concerned about what's going to happen with that golf course property. And so as we look at it, the planner said they're looking at it, mayor told me looking at it, but that golf course property, I know, was deeded initially for the city of Pontiac for recreational property. Manager came in here with no feelings for the city, sold it independently, and now it's up for sale again. And so we need to see, can we do anything to preserve what it was for our city and try to make the best of it? And I think as we start looking at, I've seen a reference on there about how Stonegate and one other area, what is it, mixed use? Only 2 areas right now, Mark, you found that's mixed use. I was really concerned when I went over and took a look at what's going on in Stonegate. So we have to be very conscientious that we are concerned about what's going on and being built in our city. And zoning is so important, so important. And I think as we get new staff people, they may be real smart and everything, but they need to know the fiber and history of the city to really make a good impact. And I'm just going to recommend that you try to get engaged with the citizens who've been around here, learn there, and don't discard your credibility of what you know, but we really got to try to have a good mix to build our city up. But I was glad to be a part of what I've seen happen today, but I'm hopefully that we can do the same thing, because right now I know for sure our credibility is on the line. If we don't treat business people right, and we don't treat citizens right, we're going to continuously have problems trying to grow our city properly. So thank you for this time. Thank you.
Thank you for your thoughts. Did you want to say anything, or other public commenter?
All I can say is amen to what he just said.
Good answer.
That sounds great, thank you. Do our newbies want to say anything at the podium?
We've got it under staff communications, so.
Okay, very good, thank you. All right, so I'm going to close the public comment at the podium, and I'm going to allow Sam to start. Do you have anything you would like to share with us tonight?
No comments from me.
All right, very good, thank you. Christopher?
I am looking forward to that master plan.
Wonderful. Tim?
No comments from me.
All right, and Michael?
The only thing I'll share is that my understanding is that with the recent departure of Planning Commissioner Johnson, that there is a vacancy. So I want to reiterate what Mr. Yandrick shared. If there's any Pontiac resident who would be interested in serving on this most stimulating and important and active and dynamic of bodies, please submit your application. The mayor makes that appointment. It's a 3-year term, and we encourage you to give that some due consideration. It is not compensated, but you get the the satisfaction of helping make your community stronger and our neighborhoods better planned.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I don't have anything other than spring is coming pretty soon, so yay. And I think that,
And I've got a few items.
okay, please.
Obviously, next meeting is the normal scheduled meeting, Wednesday, April 5th at 6 p.m. I did want to update Planning Commission on some of the city council stuff, what they're reviewing. So the adult use marijuana, they had a meeting last night, are still going through motions of amendments. What I can share is they have incorporated a Woodward Gateway Overlay District that goes from Nebraska Avenue to South Boulevard to up all the way to at the diversion of Woodward. It actually continues up the west side, which is the southbound side, all the way to Orchard Lake. Now there are some regulations with that. What's that?
To hear,
Oh, you're on. Thank you. Yeah. What's funny is I had Huron pictured in my head, but I had Orchard Lake on my mental map. So there are some things about regulations for that zoning district that City Council is still reviewing. So there really isn't a change there. I also wanted to share, and this was addressed last night, at the marijuana meeting that we had here, it was my understanding from legal that we could not increase the Woodward Gateway Overlay District because it would require another public hearing. And I had received some legal advice about that. But upon review internally, before it got to City Council, I did get another opinion. And luckily, the way our public hearing was noticed and talking about a citywide ordinance did really open the door for City Council to consider a larger Woodward Gateway Overlay District without a public hearing. Now, in the future, I would work with an attorney. I wouldn't say that that's carte blanche. It just depends on the type of ordinance. But I just wanted to clarify my statement from that. I believe it was the February 25th meeting. So. Lighthouse is coming forward for their second reading on the rezoning next week, and then the Weaver School, 204 West New York, is coming forward for their rezoning and a first reading next week. So, and then with that, I would like to continue to introduce, I know they were introduced at the beginning of the meeting, but the City of Pontiac is very honored to have 2 new planners of the staff, and I would like to give each of them 2 minutes each at the podium just to introduce themselves. So I'm going to start with Corey Christensen, who is a senior planner with us. And obviously you'll be working with the, not just me, but with the team here. So.
Excellent.
So I'll make this pretty quick. My name is Corey Christensen. Prior to being hired on as a senior planner for Pontiac, I worked as a consultant in the Flint area, a planning consultant for Road Professional Services. Prior to that, I was the zoning administrator for the city of Flint. I'm originally from Farmington, so I'm thrilled to be back in Oakland County and working with all of you. In addition to my work in planning, I'm also a planning commissioner in Davison Township, so I'm used to being on both sides of this table. So it's good to meet all of you, and I'm looking forward to future meetings.
Okay.
Thank you and welcome.
And then we have Justin Curry, who is our Planner 1. I'm going to be more excited about Justin as a Planner 1 than any other Planner 1 I'll ever work with in my life. So he brings a really good energy, and there's going to be some training, but I think he's very excited to get involved with Pontiac. So Justin,
what an introduction.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Again, my name is Justin Curry, and I hail from Flint, Michigan. Born and raised. I actually worked for a nonprofit prior to working here with the United Community Housing Coalition and based in Detroit. So I have a lot of nonprofit experience. Prior to that, I worked for Rocket Mortgage and Refinance. Currently, I'm attending Wayne State University as a master's in urban planning student with concentration in housing and community development. So I want to thank you for your time today, and I look forward to working with you all.
Thank you and welcome.
Welcome.
Did you 2 know each other in Flint? No. Oh my gosh. How about that? Well, I'm glad you know each other now.
Yeah.
So that is it for staff communications this evening.
Okay, very good. So then when I turn my next item here is adjournment. How about that?
So moved.
Support? Support.
Support.
All right. Thank you, everybody.